Transfer portal, there's a lot going on. Even as we speak, there's a lot going on. So, since we last spoke, Auburn's making moves. Hugh Freeze is making moves. Jackson Arnold is headed to Auburn. So, once upon a time, he is the Elite 11 MVP, and then he commits to Oklahoma, and he's the quarterback of the future. And then Dylan Gabriel transfers to Oregon, and Oklahoma's like, that's okay, we got Jackson Arnold. And then Jackson Arnold's era does not go as planned. And now he's out, and he's on his way to Auburn. Now, as soon as I heard this news, I thought to myself, well, that's a Bo Nix reversal. What do I mean? I mean, once upon a time, Bo Nix was at Auburn, and I thought he had sky-high potential. Turns out I was right on that one, but he couldn't realize it at Auburn. So he had to transfer to Oregon. And there, he ends up becoming a first-round draft pick. Never would have happened at Auburn. So we fast forward, and Jackson Arnold, sky-high potential, I still think he has it. He just was never going to realize it at Oklahoma. So this one is transferring to Auburn to try and realize his potential. Will it happen? I don't know. I really don't have a great feel for it. I do know that Auburn is working fervently to try and backfill or reload their roster elsewhere. For example, Matt Zenitz just in the past few hours has said Xavier Chaplin, who was an All-American tackle in 2023 at Virginia Tech, they're expected to land him as well. I mean, Auburn understand the score. We talked about this in October. Auburn's season was largely going down the drain. I thought to myself, it's going to be tough, but this year's team looks nothing like next year's team will look. We know the quarterback of their future is not on the roster right now. At least we thought so, and that ends up being true. So these are pieces. This is not a team. These are pieces being put together. We'll see how all the pieces start to connect in the spring. We'll see how much work there is to be done with Jackson Arnold. Because, I mean, Auburn was a turnover-prone team this year. Jackson Arnold was a turnover-prone player this year. Is it a double negative situation where that equals a positive? I'm not sure that extends from the grammar classroom to the field. Hopefully. I also think it's a little more complicated than that. Miller Moss has landed at Louisville. So Miller Moss, the story around Miller Moss, I think, is egregiously mischaracterized. I still think he's a really good player. I think he was in a really bad position, ironically, at the quarterback position, playing for Lincoln Riley this year, which is like the antithesis of the way we've always told that story in the past. In the past, it's quarterbacks need to go to Lincoln Riley to benefit, to flourish, and just so happened this year's situation sucked. And Miller Moss was right there in the middle of it. I still think he's a really good player. And I think Louisville is acutely aware of who they have to be and what they've been doing. This is Jeff Brom's third portal quarterback in 3 years, and they've figured their process out. I think Miller Moss, I'm just telling you right now, I got a lot of respect for what our 24/7 sports folks do in their rankings. I'd have this dude a lot higher than 41st in the portal. Let me just put it that way. So this is a top 20 passing offense. Isaac Brown's there at running back. They know what they're doing. I have very little doubt that whatever Miller Moss's maximum capability is, we haven't seen it yet. And whatever it is, Jeff Brom and that staff will get it out of him. So this was a sneaky situation. This was probably not a headline grabber. This is one, though, when you're in the middle of the ACC season next year, when we're starting to figure out the playoff race, and Louisville's right there in the mix, just remember, quietly, Jeff Brom and Louisville made a move, got their guy. I got a lot more to talk about. By the way, remember, if you're watching and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the channel. It's free. It's free, and it helps us, and it doesn't do anything to you. It doesn't sign you up for anything. If you think you're subscribed, but you're not sure, you may not be. So check. It's one button. It takes 2 nanoseconds. LSU's making moves. So Michael Van Buren, there's an interesting route being taken here. Michael Van Buren played quarterback for Mississippi State this year. Bad team. He had flashes, but they're going in a different direction. He's going in a different direction, so he is transferred to LSU. Now, to me, this feels a lot like Dante Moore. Dante Moore, former 5-star guy, he commits to UCLA. He plays some as a freshman. It's really up and down, more down than up. A lot of folks think he still has a lot of potential, so what does he do? He transfers to Oregon and sits behind Dylan Gabriel this year. He was willing to take a step back and sit. and hoping that the team will be his in the future. So Garrett Nussmeier is coming back for LSU. And Michael Van Buren, as a result, probably doesn't start for them next year. But that's okay. As long as you understand what the deal is, you understand what the score is, you understand what's best for your development, you go and you sit a year. You got yourself a taste of SEC action. Now you go sit. You're going to play on a better team, better roster than the one you were a part of this past year. It was Levy's first year at Mississippi State. They were a disaster most of the season. So you get a fresh start. You get a year to feel things out, and you'll probably be better for it. That is not all they've been doing. They went and got Berrien Brown, number 15 overall in the portal. That's a wide receiver out of Kentucky. Jakeem Jackson, the corner from Florida. So the big blow to LSU was Bryce Underwood decommitted. I guess the silver lining there was you had a lot of NIL resources tied up in his recruitment that get freed. Now, if you understand anything about how resources are allocated, it's not as simple as we had promised a lot of money to this recruit, and because he decommitted, now we can just take that money. It's all in one giant fund, and we can go spend it on transfer portal guys. No, you have, in an ideal athletic department, in an ideal football complex, you have sort of a tier, a pyramid, if you will, and you've got certain allocation for high school recruiting, certain allocation for the portal and roster retention. Now, you can move that around. It's fluid, and I'm sure they've had to do that down there. But this is one of those situations where we knew what it was going to cost to get Bryce Underwood. We've got him. Oh, never mind. He decommitted and went to Michigan. What are we going to do with all this money? Got to do something with it. Let's go spend it. Ole Miss is doing it again. They picked up 3 top 25 portal kids since we last spoke, 2 of them in the top 6. So they went and got the number 1 edge. They went and got the number 2 interior offensive lineman, the number 2 tight end. It looks like another top 5 portal finish is imminent here. Could be a little higher, could be a little lower. And this is it's the Ole Miss blueprint under Lane Kiffin. Now, there is never, ever, ever a world where I would forecast what happened to Florida State happening to anyone. Ole Miss people think everyone who doesn't wave a blue and red pom-pom hates them, including me. I don't. And I am not predicting them to go the way of FSU, not even close to it. What I am merely suggesting here in mid-December is just because you go and get another group of highly rated portal guys does not guarantee that it's going to come together magically every year like it came together this past year. And you could argue it didn't magically come together this past year. They lost to Kentucky. They lost the LSU game. They lost to Florida. It was a very workable schedule. They beat Georgia, but they still ultimately fell short of the playoffs. So you could argue it didn't magically come together this past year. You could argue, hey, Josh, for all the talk about you saying that it could dip down next year, maybe it could spike up. You are correct about that. I'm just trying to present both sides of the coin there. It's not one-sided. It is a true two-sided coin. And so this is meant to be nothing more than a reminder that when you play portal roulette every year, they call it roulette for a reason. That's all I'm trying to remind you of. I am monitoring Texas A&M. They went and got Julian Humphrey from Georgia, the corner. They've had a huge visitors list. I don't know if you've been following this. I have, so you don't have to. They've had a huge visitors list. They brought a lot of wide receivers through there, especially. Nick Anderson, I think, from Oklahoma. Heard some pretty good stuff on him today. It's not locked up. I just heard some pretty good stuff on him. I'm very interested to watch their strategy because this is the first year through the whole cycle of it with Mike Elko. So I'm interested to see, like, how many of these guys do they actually move on? How many of them can they get if they do move on them? That's why I'm monitoring them. I'm watching them closely right now. Also, as we were coming on air, Bo Pribula, who is the backup for Penn State, the backup quarterback, announced, now, Jesse, correct me if I'm wrong, he's expected to go in the portal. He just announced, and he will not be with the team for the playoff, okay, which is, I'm not even casting aspersions on him. It's not his fault that no one in their right mind understands how to construct the college football calendar. But what I just told you is Penn State is in the playoff, and their backup quarterback is entering the portal, and he will not play. He will not be with the team in the playoff. That's correct, Jesse? Okay. So, again, you can think of the kid whatever you want. It's a very, very weird dynamic. Hopefully one day down the road when I'm elected commissioner, the calendar makes sense. It doesn't right now. That's one of many reasons. Like we were talking about with Belichick the other night. Oh, Josh, college football is just like the NFL. No, it's not. No, it's not. Because I promise you that the coaching carousel season and the playoff and free agency and the draft don't all happen at the same time in the NFL. They do in college football because we have morons creating the calendar. And so anyway, long story short, Penn State's backup quarterback, who had to play against Wisconsin, if you'll recall, like he had to come in and they had to come from behind, didn't they? So he's in the portal. They don't have their backup quarterback now for the playoff. It is a pretty good indication that Drew Aller is returning next year for anyone keeping track at home.